The landing craft descended through the thick, moisture-laden atmosphere of Xylos, cutting through massive cloud formations that swirled like celestial whirlpools. Xyler gripped the edge of his console, his knuckles turning a pale shade of blue as his species did when experiencing acute stress. The interstellar Concordat protocols for Class X planets, water worlds, were explicit and extensive, and as the mission's xenobiologist and diplomatic representative, he had memorized every single one. Entering lower atmosphere, Captain Eva Rostova announced, her hands steady on the controls. Interesting formations below. Those aren't just oceans, they're organized somehow. Xyler adjusted his monitoring equipment nervously. The Concordat has been quite clear about water worlds, Captain Rostova. They are evolutionary dead ends. Any life forms we encounter will be primitive at best, predatory at worst. Eva glanced at him with a slight smile that Xyler had come to recognize as her way of being polite while completely disregarding his concerns. The Concordat said the same thing about the methane lakes on Titan before we found the crystal architects there. I prefer to see for myself. This is different, Xyler insisted, his voice tight. Water worlds are death traps. No spacefaring civilization has ever emerged from one. The physics simply doesn't support the development of metallurgy, controlled fire, or complex tool creation. The landing craft broke through the final layer of clouds, revealing an endless expanse of turquoise waters stretching to the horizon, punctuated by what appear to be massive coral formations rising from the depths like the spires of drowned cathedrals. Bioluminescent patterns pulsed across these structures in complex, repeating sequences. Are those signals? Eva murmured, tapping her console to enhance the visual feed. Likely just natural bioluminescence, Xyler replied automatically, though he was already recording the patterns for analysis. Even Earth jellyfish exhibit similar properties. As they approached their designated landing zone, one of the few rocky outcroppings that broke the water surface, Xyler meticulously ran through the pre-landing checklist, triple-checking the atmospheric composition and pathogen filters. The craft settled onto the small island with barely a tremor, testament to Eva's skilled piloting. Establishing base camp, Eva announced over the comm to their orbiting vessel. Initial readings show no immediate threats. We'll proceed with preliminary exploration after setup. Acknowledged, Captain, came the response from orbit. Concordat Command requests hourly status reports given the extreme classification of Xylos. Eva rolled her eyes when the transmission ended. Extreme classification. They act like we're landing in a literal hell dimension instead of just a planet with lots of water. The classification exists for good reason, Xyler said stiffly, already donning his environmental suit. Its thick, insulated material would protect him not only from potential pathogens, but also, more importantly for his species, from direct water contact. Evolved on a desert world with precious little surface water, Xyler's kind harbored a deep-seated fear of drowning that went beyond mere phobia. It was encoded in their genetic memory. Eva, by contrast, wore only the standard lightweight exploration gear. I'm not going deep diving on the first day, she said when Xyler commented on her lack of protection. But humans evolved in and around water. I can handle a splash or two. The island was small, barely 200 meters across, composed of volcanic rock worn smooth by endless waves. Shallow tide pools dotted its surface, each teeming with small creatures that resembled a cross between starfish and coral polyps, their colors shifting like living opals. Xyler carefully collected samples, maintaining strict quarantine protocols. Fascinating adaptation, he admitted reluctantly. These organisms appear to be capable of photosynthesis and predation simultaneously. Eva had wandered to the island's edge, where the rocks sloped gently into crystal-clear shallows. Xyler, she called, her voice uncharacteristically hushed. You should see this. Approaching cautiously, each step carefully placed to avoid unnecessary contact with the wet surface, Xyler joined her at the water's edge. Beneath the gentle waves, a vast underwater forest stretched into the depths. What had appeared from above as coral formations were in fact massive structures resembling a hybrid of kelp and mangrove trees, their bioluminescent patterns now clearly visible as complex networks running through transparent tissues. It's like a circuit board made of living material, Eva breathed. And look, movement. Between the massive trunks, shadows glided with deliberate purpose. They were too distant to make out clearly, but their movements suggested intelligence rather than the random patterns of schooling fish. We should return to the craft, Xyler said, fighting the instinctive fear rising within him. Set up proper monitoring equipment before. A ripple disturbed the water nearby, and before Xyler could retreat, a figure emerged from the shallows. The being rose slowly, water cascading from a form that resembled a humanoid crossed with aquatic features. Its skin was a mosaic of iridescent scales that shifted from deep blue to silver depending on how the light struck them. Webbed hands with 7 elongated fingers spread in what could have been a gesture of peace or warning. Most striking were its eyes, enormous, with vertical pupils and concentric rings of color that seemed to undulate like the surface of the water itself. "Greetings," Eva said softly, raising her empty hands in the universal gesture of peaceful intent. The being tilted its head, emitting a series of melodic clicks and whistles. Water slid from gill-like structures on its neck, and behind it, more figures began to emerge from the depths. Xyler fumbled with his translator device, cursing its slowness in analyzing the unknown language patterns. "Captain, please maintain distance until we can establish communication protocols." Eva nodded, but didn't step back. The being approached cautiously, its movements fluid and graceful even on land. It carried no visible weapons or tools, though intricate patterns of bioluminescence pulsed beneath its scales in what appeared to be deliberate sequences. After several tense moments, Xyler's translator emitted a tentative series of clicks and whistles. The being reacted immediately, its eyes widening as it responded with a more complex pattern of sounds. "Translation matrix establishing," Xyler muttered. "Primitive but functional." The being turned its large eyes toward him, and the translator rendered its response. "Not primitive. Different." Eva smiled. It understood the connotation, not just the words. She addressed the being directly. "We are visitors from beyond your sky. I am Eva Rostova. This is Xyler. We come in peace to learn about your world." The translator worked through her statement, and the being listened intently before responding. "I am." The translation faltered on the name, rendering it as a musical notation rather than pronounceable syllables. "We are hydrokin. Why do you wear shells but not swim?" Xyler stepped forward, activating the official Concordat First Contact Protocol on his device. "We represent the Interstellar Concordat, a union of space-faring civilizations. We are conducting a survey of your world to determine its classification and potential." The translation seemed to confuse the being, whose bioluminescent patterns flickered rapidly. The other hydrokin who had emerged from the water exchanged what appeared to be concerned glances. "What is classification?" the first being asked. "A measure of technological and cultural development," Xyler explained. "Do you utilize fire? Metallurgy? Have you developed solid-state structures?" These questions produced a reaction like ripples through the gathered hydrokin, their bioluminescent patterns synchronizing momentarily in what seemed like confusion or possibly amusement. "Why need fire underwater?" the translator rendered. "Why metal when coral grows? Why solid when current flows?" Eva shot Xyler a pointed look. "I think we're asking the wrong questions," she said quietly. "The Concordat protocols assume certain developmental paths." Turning back to the hydrokin, she tried a different approach. "How do you communicate over long distances? How do you travel? How do you build?" These questions generated enthusiastic responses, the hydrokin's patterns brightening and changing rapidly as they spoke over one another. The translators struggled to keep up, but fragments came through. Song carries through water. Leviathan friends carry us through deep currents. We shape the living cities with song and current. "Living cities?" Eva echoed, intrigued. "Could you show us?" The lead hydrokin considered this, then nodded. You can swim. I can, Eva confirmed, ignoring Xyler's sharp intake of breath. Though not as well as you, I imagine. The small waters near shore, the hydrokin suggested, gesturing toward the shallow areas. Safety for air breathers. Xyler activated a private channel to speak directly to Eva. Captain, this far exceeds protocol. We are supposed to conduct initial observations from a safe distance, not immediately immerse ourselves in an alien environment. Noted, Eva replied simply, already removing her outer gear to reveal the form-fitting bodysuit underneath. But they're offering to show us something the Concordat has never seen before, a water-based civilization. I'm not passing that up because of a protocol written by beings who can't even swim. Captain, I must formally object to. Objection noted, Xyler, she interrupted, her tone remaining friendly, but firm. You can continue observations from here. I'll maintain comms link. The lead hydrokin watched this exchange with evident curiosity, then made a gesture toward the water. Several younger-looking hydrokin approached, their movements suggesting eagerness. They will guide, the translator interpreted. Show shallow city first. Eva nodded and followed them to the water's edge. Before stepping in, she activated the recording function on her suit sensors. For the record, she said, I'm proceeding with first contact immersion on my own authority, believing it serves both diplomatic and scientific objectives. She waded into the clear water, and the young hydrokin circled her with obvious fascination, their bioluminescent patterns shifting in what might have been excitement. Xyler remained on shore, his sensors at maximum range, recording everything while fighting his species' instinctive aversion to the scene. Eva followed her guides into deeper water, eventually swimming alongside them as they led her toward one of the massive coral-like structures. Up close, the formation revealed itself to be even more complex than it had appeared from shore. What had seemed like natural growths were in fact carefully cultivated structures. Translucent tubes carried what looked like glowing fluids through the matrix, and spherical chambers housed communities of smaller creatures working in apparent harmony with the hydrokin. This is incredible. Eva's voice came through Xyler's calm. It's like living architecture. The entire structure is conscious on some level. The young hydrokin guided her through a series of archways formed by the coral formations, each pulsing with patterns that seemed to respond to their presence. Small creatures resembling a cross between fish and hummingbirds darted around them, carrying objects between different sections of the structure. What are they doing? Eva asked, pointing to a group of hydrokin who appeared to be singing to a section of the coral matrix, which was slowly reshaping itself in response. Growing the city, came the translated response. Song shapes. Current feeds. City lives. Eva's amazement was evident even through the calm link. They're not building with materials, Xyler. They're growing their technology. It's biotechnology on a scale we've never seen. Xyler was dutifully recording everything, but his scientific curiosity was now genuinely engaged despite his reservations. Ask them how they power these systems, he suggested, and how they coordinate the growth patterns across such large structures. Eva relayed the questions, and the hydrokin led her deeper into the structure. They arrived at a chamber where the bioluminescent activity was particularly intense. In the center floated what appeared to be a large, brain-like organ pulsing with complex light patterns. The node remembers, the translator rendered, holds the song patterns of generations, tells the city how to grow. It's like a biological computer, Eva whispered, storing information in light patterns and biochemical sequences. The hydrokin seemed pleased by her understanding. One of them gestured toward a passage leading deeper. More to show. Deep city where the leviathans sing. Eva hesitated. How deep? I can't go too far underwater without special equipment. The hydrokin conferred briefly, their patterns suggesting problem-solving. One disappeared briefly, returning with what looked like a transparent membrane. Air bubble, the translator explained. Leviathan made for surface visits. We'll hold breath for you. Xyler's voice came urgently through the calm. Captain, using alien biological technology as life support is absolutely against protocol. The risks are calculated, Eva finished for him, and worth taking for what we might learn. She addressed the Hydrokin directly. I would be honored to see the deep city, but I need to return to my ship first for appropriate equipment. Our biology is different from yours. The Hydrokin seemed to understand, and they escorted her back toward the shore. As they neared the island, one of them suddenly froze, its patterns flashing in what was clearly alarm. The others responded immediately, forming a protective circle around Eva. "What's happening?" she asked, tensing. "Danger signal from the deep," the translator rendered. "Trouble at the nursery chasm." When they reached the shore, the lead Hydrokin was waiting with several elders, their patterns communicating urgently with Eva's escorts. Xyler had set up additional monitoring equipment and was recording the exchange. "There appears to be some kind of crisis," he informed Eva as she emerged from the water. Their communication patterns showed distress indicators across all frequencies. The lead Hydrokin approached them, its movements now sharp with urgency. "The deep nursery is in danger. Leviathan friend who guards is trapped. Earthshake has caused rockfall in the chasm. A seismic event," Xyler translated. "Apparently, it's trapped one of their symbiotic megafauna and is threatening some kind of nursery facility." Eva nodded, rapidly toweling herself dry. "Ask if we can help." When Xyler relayed the offer, the Hydrokin's patterns showed surprise, then something like hope. "Can your sky shell move great rocks? Can it see in deep dark?" "Our landing craft has sonar capabilities and limited tractor functionality," Eva confirmed. "We might be able to assist, depending on the depth and conditions." Xyler pulled her aside, his voice urgent. "Captain, I must remind you that Concordat protocols explicitly forbid intervention in natural events on survey worlds. We are observers only, especially on Class X planets." "This isn't a natural event, it's a rescue mission," Eva countered. "And there's nothing in the protocols that says we can't render humanitarian aid to a species we've just met, using technology they've never encountered, potentially altering their development path. The Concordat would call that contamination." Eva's expression hardened. "Then we'll call it something else in our report." She turned back to the Hydrokin. "Show us what happened. We'll see if we can help." The lead Hydrokin guided them to a higher point on the island, where another elder was manipulating what appeared to be a living display, a flattened, transparent creature whose surface rippled with images of the underwater landscape. It showed a deep chasm where massive rock formations had collapsed, trapping an enormous whale-like creature. Near the trapped Leviathan was a structure resembling a vast, luminous web containing thousands of small, glowing spheres. "The nursery web," the translator rendered. "Future children of many kinds grow there. Leviathan friend keeps water current flowing through. Without current, death comes quickly. And your people can't move the rocks themselves?" Eva asked. "Too deep for many to go. Too heavy for song to move. Leviathan friends trying, but rock cuts them. Need different help." Eva studied the display intently. "Xyler, can we get the landing craft airborne? Use its sensors to get a better picture of the situation." Despite his reservations, Xyler nodded. "Yes, but I should remind you that I've already sent a situation report to the Concordat as required. They'll likely respond with orders soon." "Then we'd better move quickly," Eva replied, already heading for the craft. Within minutes, they were airborne, hovering over the location the Hydrokin had indicated. The craft's advanced sensors penetrated the water, mapping the underwater geography in precise detail. Several Hydrokin had joined them aboard, overcoming their initial trepidation about the air shell to provide guidance. The sensor display confirmed what they'd been shown. A massive subsea landslide had trapped one of the Leviathans against the nursery structure it apparently guarded. The creature was still alive, but clearly struggling, and the current that normally flowed through the nursery was visibly diminished. "The tractor beam might be able to move some of the smaller fragments," Xyler said, analyzing the data, "but not the main boulder that's pinned the creature. What if we use the beam to create a new channel for the current?" Eva suggested. bypass the blockage rather than removing it entirely? Before Xyler could respond, the comm system activated with an incoming message from orbit. Landing team, this is Concordat Command. We've reviewed your situation report. Your orders are to maintain observation only. Repeat, no intervention authorized in what appears to be a natural evolutionary event. These are primitive beings on a Class X world facing natural selection pressures. Observation only. The Hydrokin couldn't understand the message, but they clearly sensed the tension that followed. Acknowledged command, Eva replied formally. Then, muting the comm, she turned to Xyler. They don't understand what we're dealing with here. These aren't primitives facing natural selection. They're an advanced civilization with a completely different technological path than ours. Even if that's true, Xyler argued, we have our orders. The Concordat classification system exists for a reason. Water worlds have never produced advanced civilizations before. Maybe because we've never looked properly, Eva countered. We've been judging them by standards that don't apply. Fire? Metallurgy? Of course they don't have those. They'd be useless here. But look at their biological engineering, their symbiotic relationships with megafauna, their living architecture. That's not primitive, it's just different. The lead Hydrokin approached them, its pattern subdued. Your distant voice says no help. Eva hesitated, then made her decision. My distant voice doesn't understand yet. But I do. We'll help, but we need to be creative about it. She turned back to the control panel. Xyler, can we use the landing craft sonic emitters? Not to move the rocks directly, but to map the structural weak points? Maybe help the Leviathans focus their efforts more effectively. Xyler stared at her for a long moment, internal conflict evident in his expression. Finally, he sighed. That might work, and technically, providing information could be classified as enhanced observation rather than direct intervention. Exactly, Eva said with a small smile. Enhanced observation. She explained the plan to the Hydrokin, who quickly grasped the concept. Song finding the weak places, the translator rendered. Clever thinking. But as they prepared to implement the plan, one of the younger Hydrokin approached with what appeared to be a concerned expression, its patterns flashing rapidly. Problem. The translator interpreted. Need to coordinate with Leviathan friends directly. Song must be precise. Wrong note could cause more rockfall. Can't you communicate with them from here? Eva asked. The Hydrokin's patterns shifted in what might have been a negative. Too far for clear song. Need close voice. Need water touch. So someone needs to go down there, Eva concluded. She glanced at Xyler, whose blue skin had paled significantly at the suggestion. Absolutely not, he said firmly. The depth alone would crush an unprotected humanoid, not to mention the risks of direct contact with alien megafauna. What about the craft's remote submersibles? Eva suggested. Too clumsy, the Hydrokin said after the idea was translated. Cannot sing. Cannot feel current speak of Leviathans. Eva considered the problem. What if I went? With proper protection and guidance. Xyler stared at her in shock. Captain, that's beyond reckless. It's the only solution, Eva finished for him. Our submersibles can't do it. You can't do it. The Hydrokin need additional help that only a tool user with different perspectives can provide. Besides, she added with a small smile, humans are pretty good swimmers. Not at those depths. We have pressure suits in storage, Eva countered. Designed for emergency EVA and high-pressure gas giants. They should work underwater too. The Hydrokin watched this exchange with evident interest. When the translator conveyed Eva's intention, their patterns brightened dramatically. Brave song, one of them commented. Sky Swimmer would risk deep current for strangers? For intelligent beings in need, Eva corrected. That's what exploration is about, building bridges between different kinds of intelligence. Despite Xyler's continued protests, Eva proceeded with preparations. The pressure suit was bulky but functional, with external manipulators that would allow her to operate tools underwater. The Hydrokin examined it with fascination, suggesting modifications to improve its hydrodynamics. As Eva prepared to deploy, a final message came through from Concordat Command. Captain Rostova, Satellite monitoring indicates unauthorized mission preparation. You are ordered to stand down immediately. This is your final warning." Eva looked at Xyler, who stood torn between duty and the newfound respect he was developing for the Hydrokin civilization. "You could stay with the craft," she offered. "Maintain deniability. Say, I went against orders." Xyler's inner conflict was visible in his expression. Finally, he straightened his posture. The Concordat's classification system is flawed if it cannot recognize the advanced nature of this civilization. I will assist in the operation and accept the consequences. The relief and gratitude in Eva's smile was immediate. "Thank you, Xyler. Now, let's go save some aliens." The operation proceeded in phases. First, the landing craft positioned itself directly above the affected area, using its sensors to create a detailed three-dimensional map of the rockfall. This information was translated into sonic patterns that the Hydrokin could understand and communicate to the Leviathans. Eva, accompanied by two Hydrokin guides, descended in a small submersible to an outcropping near the trapped Leviathan. From there, protected by her pressure suit, she would swim the final distance to coordinate the rescue efforts directly. As the submersible descended through the increasingly dark waters, Eva watched in awe as the true scale of the Hydrokin civilization revealed itself. What had seemed like isolated structures from above were in fact interconnected complexes spanning vast areas of the seafloor. Bioluminescent networks pulsed with information, and Hydrokin of various sizes and colorations moved purposefully through their underwater domains. The trapped Leviathan came into view, and Eva felt her breath catch. The creature was massive, easily the size of a blue whale, but with a more streamlined form. Its skin rippled with bioluminescent patterns far more complex than those of the Hydrokin, and even in its distress, there was an undeniable intelligence in its enormous eye as it tracked their approach. "Extraordinary," she whispered, the word fogging her faceplate momentarily. The submersible settled on a stable outcropping, and Eva prepared for the final phase. Her Hydrokin guides attached a tether to her suit. Not to restrain her, she realized, but to help channel her through the complex currents near the rockfall. "Ready," she confirmed, and the airlock cycled open. The sensation of leaving the submersible for open water was disorienting despite her preparation. The pressure suit maintained its integrity, but Eva could feel the immense weight of the ocean pressing against it from all sides. Her guides moved with graceful efficiency, leading her toward the trapped Leviathan. As they approached, the creature emitted a series of low-frequency vibrations that Eva could feel through her suit. The Hydrokin responded with their own patterns, apparently explaining her presence. The Leviathan's massive eye, easily the size of Eva herself, regarded her with unmistakable intelligence. There was pain there, but also curiosity and something like hope. Working together, Eva used the suit's external manipulators to place sonic emitters at key points around the rockfall, following the guidance of both her Hydrokin companions and Xyler's voice through her comlink. The emitters would help focus the Leviathan's efforts, showing them exactly where to apply pressure to shift the rocks without causing further collapse. "The structural analysis is complete," Xyler reported. "If they can apply force to the highlighted areas sequentially, the main boulder should shift enough to free the trapped Leviathan without compromising the nursery structure." Eva relayed this information to her guides, who communicated it to both the trapped Leviathan and others that had arrived to help. What followed was one of the most remarkable displays of coordination Eva had ever witnessed. Multiple Leviathans positioned themselves precisely, using their massive bodies to apply pressure exactly where needed, while Hydrokin directed currents to help stabilize other sections. The rock formation groaned and shifted. For a heart-stopping moment, it seemed like it might collapse further, but then the trapped Leviathan gave one final, powerful surge and broke free, immediately moving to restore the current flow to the nursery structure. The Hydrokin erupted in what could only be described as underwater celebration, their bioluminescent patterns flashing in synchronous joy. The freed Leviathan circled once, its patterns acknowledging Eva before it resumed its duties, maintaining the critical water flow through the nursery. As Eva's guides led her back to the submersible, she felt a profound sense of accomplishment, not just for the successful rescue, but for the bridge they had built between fundamentally different kinds of intelligence. Back aboard the landing craft, Xyler was already preparing their report to the Concordat. "I'm officially recommending a complete reclassification of Xylos," he said as Eva removed her helmet. "This isn't a Class X primitive water world. It's a fully developed civilization with a unique technological path." "They won't like that," Eva warned. "It contradicts centuries of Concordat doctrine about evolutionary paths." "Then the doctrine needs to evolve," Xyler replied simply. "What we've witnessed here, the bioengineering, the symbiotic relationships with megafauna, the living architecture, it's not just a different technological path. It's a different definition of technology itself." The Hydrokin who had accompanied them on a mission approached, their patterns conveying what seemed like formal gratitude. The lead one gestured toward a small, living container it carried. "Gift for bridge builders," the translator rendered. "Memory coral holds the song story of today. Will grow and remember for many currents of time." Eva accepted the gift with appropriate reverence. "We are honored, and we hope this is just the beginning of many exchanges between our peoples." When the Hydrokin had departed, Xyler examined the memory coral with scientific curiosity. "This could revolutionize our understanding of biological data storage," he mused. "Their entire civilization is a challenge to our assumptions about what constitutes advanced technology. And what constitutes a death trap," Eva added. "The Concordat has been avoiding water worlds because we couldn't imagine how intelligence would develop there without following our path." "Our land-biased path," Xyler corrected himself. "Born of dry worlds where fire and metal were the obvious tools." As they prepared the landing craft for departure the next day, Concordat Command finally responded to their updated report with a tersely worded acknowledgement and orders to return for extensive debriefing. "They're not happy," Eva noted. "They'll be even less happy when they review our full findings," Xyler replied. "But they can't deny the evidence. Xylos isn't a primitive world. It's just been waiting for someone willing to swim in unfamiliar waters to discover its wonders." The Hydrokin gathered to witness their departure, floating just offshore in a formation that created complex, interweaving patterns of bioluminescence visible even from the air. "A farewell display," Xyler translated, his earlier fear of water seemingly forgotten as he stood at the edge of the shore. "They're encoding our visit into their collective memory." Eva nodded, watching the beautiful patterns ripple across the gathering. "And we're bringing their memory back to the stars. The Concordat will have to rewrite their definition of death trap and civilization after this." As the landing craft rose through the atmosphere, leaving the endless blue expanse of Xylos behind, Eva couldn't help but smile at how fundamentally their mission had changed. They had arrived as observers, expecting to confirm existing theories about the limitations of water worlds. They were departing as ambassadors, carrying evidence that would challenge the very foundations of the Concordat's understanding of alien intelligence. And it had all begun because a human was willing to swim in alien waters. "You know," Xyler said thoughtfully as they approached their orbiting vessel, "there are 17 other Class X planets in Concordat records, all dismissed as evolutionary dead ends without proper investigation." "17, huh?" Eva replied with a spark of adventure in her eyes. "Sounds like we got our work cut out for us." The memory coral pulsed softly in its containment unit, recording their words, remembering their journey, bridging the vast gulf between water and stars. Proof that understanding required more than observation from a safe distance. Sometimes, it required immersion in worlds once thought to be death traps, until humans went swimming.